Hello, I'm Janine Crownover with Delphix, and I'm here with Dragan Trikovic from SolutionSoft, and we're going to provide a demonstration of the Delphix bookmark capabilities with the SolutionSoft virtual clock. And Dragan, you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Janine. Hi, everyone. I'm Dragan Trajkovic from SolutionSoft, and I'll be joining Janine for today's demonstration how our two solutions work in synergy.
So what we're going to start with, and you can see from our screen, is we have a time machine sync server installed attaching to an application with a virtual database and an application with a virtual database. And then we have the Delphix server that's going to be manipulating those virtual databases. So let's get started. So what you're seeing in front of you now is actually the Delphix bookmark capabilities. We're in the self-service portal. And as you can see, I have several branches, and I'm going to be testing specifically on this time travel testing. It is the current date of this demonstration, and we're going to actually change the time on the virtual clock in a minute, and then we'll be able to show you how Delphix, working with the virtual clock, can go back and forth in time.
Okay, so what you see in front of you is the list of several sync groups created in a sync server. A sync server is a product that you'll use if you want to create multiple virtual clocks simultaneously to different targets. In order to show you how a configuration of a sync group looks like, we're going to double click to the first one, and you'll see that within a sync group, you can basically define several things. First of all, you can define what kind of a virtual clock you would like to create, meaning to, for example, what virtual time are you going to time travel to. Then you can specify all the targets that need to time travel together to that particular virtual time. And finally, on each of the targets, you would specify what is the user that needs to be time traveled. And that means that basically you should only time travel a user that owns a particular database server or an application server, depending on your setup. So what we have here is a sync group that will create a virtual clock for January 1st, 2021 at 8 a.m. And it will time travel a target, which is Delphix CRM target with this IP address and the port. And on that target, we will only time travel the user Delphix target because that user is the one that owns both the database server and the application server. So as Janine now clicked on the enable sync group button, the sync server has successfully went through the whole process of checking all the targets are available and finalized that. So now we can close this window and move on and check how the virtual time is affecting our environment.
So taking back to the Delphix self-service portal where I'll be bookmarking, I'm going to create the beginning of my test bookmark. So I'm on my time travel testing, which is good to have a branch specifically dedicated to time travel so that you're able to get back in time and know that that particular database or that testing occurred during time travel. We keep obviously other branches in case you need to go back to standard testing. But as you can see on this timeline, what you're noticing is a linear time. And this is important to know that, so this way on Tuesday, you know you did a time travel testing. So you won't actually see the virtual clock. But if I were to actually bookmark here, I'll actually bookmark at the star, and I'm going to bookmark, and I'm going to put down today's, this went to January 1st, 2021. So if I ever need to get back to this bookmark, I can just recall this one knowing that the clock had been changed to January 1st, 2021. And I will create that bookmark. And what that bookmark is doing then is giving me an opportunity, like I mentioned, to always go back to this point in time before the testing happened. So while that's setting, let's take a look at the Suite CRM that we're going to actually be showing you the differences in time and creation. I'm going to create a contact in this case, and you will see that the date created will show not today's date, but that virtual clock. You see if this is completed. Oh, I'll go back to here. Okay, that bookmark is completed. You see there's, if I were to click on it, showing you January 21st. I'm going to create a user or a contact. I'm going to call this Mr. John Shaw. His office phone is and brevity, and then I will save the contact. And what you'll notice is once this contact is saved, that he has a create date of January 1st, 2021. And that's important. So ideally, you would be simulating multiple tests, maybe an end of month or end of quarter or end of year um, invoicing application you want to validate, or reporting application. So in this case, let's assume we've now completed our test. I will bookmark again, and I'll say completion of test. Testing, right? Create that, go back to my time flow, and I need to disable this group.
Exactly. So by disabling the sync group, you're effectively removing the virtual clocks that you have created with the initial enabling process. So what Janine does is exactly that. The sync server goes through a similar process of checking if everything is okay. Then it removes the virtual clocks created previously. And now the time is back on system time. So we can check how this affects our system if we want, or we can move on to the next key point in time that we want to test.
Yeah, so let's move on, Dragon, to, let's assume we finished January 1st testing, end of year. Now we're looking at the February 1st, which would be for the month end of January. And ideally, we would just enable the next sync group. But I do believe you can also just change the sync time. But for our purposes, we just kind of want to show you.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So we could have done that in the same sync group, but for the sake of this demo, we simply created multiple sync groups, with each of the sync groups having same targets, but creating a different virtual clocks. So instead of going and opening the settings window, the only thing you need to do is to mark the desired sync group and click on the enable button, and a similar process occurs. And now we have enabled the second sync group, which takes us to February the 1st, 2021. So we can now go ahead and check our environment.
All right, so now I'll go back to the bookmarking. Now, what we're showing you seems to be a little clunky because we're going through the graphical user interface. But this can also be done in an API format. At least with Delphix, you can use GitHub, you can use Jenkins, you can use any of those orchestration tools that allows you to, push and pull APIs and set up environments, stage databases, stage testing solutions, and more likely even change the clock through API calls.
Exactly. Similarly to how Time Machine works. So basically in the same script, you can make all of these steps that we created using GUI. So enable a certain sync group, disable, create a bookmark with the Delphix solution, etc.
So I've created the February 1st bookmark so that I know that my testing following this bookmark will be related to anything within February 1st. So end of January 1 reporting or end of January 1 invoicing. So I will go at this point, and then I'll be able to create then a new contact. Once this is completed, let's make sure we're done. Once the bookmark is completed, we'll be able to go and say begin the next testing. And I will create a new contact. I'll call this one and give it emails. And what you'll notice when I save this contact is we are now creating a save point that includes February 1st and all the testing that happened. This just gives you an ability, right, to say, for instance, you're running your end of month reports and something fails in that report or something fails in that invoicing application. You could always roll back to before this testing started with that bookmark. In this case, now we have the 1st of February. So let's go back to the Delphix time and we'll create another bookmark that says end of testing. And create it. Now this is all very manual. It's all just for demonstration purposes, but essentially had this happened in an API, I'm sure this would have been a blink of an eye as the computers run the API calls, which is the purpose of those continuous delivery type situations. So I've bookmarked this, the end of testing, go back to the labs, disable my sync group.
Correctly, and we're back on system time again.
And we're back on the system time. And I'll show you that once I'm completed, I'll add another contact. I won't necessarily go back to the bookmark because I just want to show for this demonstration purposes. So I can go back to this individual, create another contact, and it'll show today's date when I am completed. Great. But once this is complete, once it shows that we now have Ajit Shah here on 428 created, right? Let's say you've completed your testing and you actually need to go all the way back to the January 1st bookmark we created because you discovered that the January reports were incorrect, even though you started February. So let's activate, right? This is going to get you right back before, and you'll notice what happens if I can restore to this place. It's going to actually roll those databases. All those changes that occurred here, they'll be erased from the database because you're going all the way back to the beginning of that January testing, right? In which case you can reset that clock again and start your testing all over. So this is what the agility, the ability for iteration testing, finding errors, returning. This is where the combination of the virtual clock and the actual Delphix bookmarking capabilities come in handy. Okay, welcome back. Okay, I kind of did the speed up on the clock for you, but I wanted to show you now where we're actually at in the time flow. So we've reset the time back. We want to bookmark end of February testing. Looks like I need to speed up here. And as you can see, January 1st was the bookmark I took this from. So this allows us then to do testing over again. I started the virtual clock back to January 1st. And then if I were to refresh my screen, you'll notice that we are back to none of the testing we did from January, February, or the last reset time. And this was our demonstration for today. Anything you want to add, Dragon?
I want to thank you, Janine, for a great demonstration. And I just wanted to reiterate what you already said, that when using the API, all this goes much faster. But for the sake of this demo, to make it more illustrative, we chose the GUI way.
All right, thanks everyone.
Thanks, bye.